Yeah, I tell myself that I don't know if that's true or not, because I've never tried doing things in advance.
All right, everybody good back there? Okay. Let you fire away.
Chris, I know you've talked a lot about, having the expectations around the season kind of be a poison to your guys. Is that something that you learned while at Xavier, just experiences that you had with a team there, or why do you feel that way?
I just think all you got to do is follow sports, and it plays itself out. But I haven't been talking about that. You've been talking about that. You've asked me a couple questions, so I've answered them. I think that anytime you get told over and over how good you are before you've done anything or earned it, it gives you a false sense of, effort. It gives you a false sense of, you having done something that you haven't. So that's why I address it.
Chris, I know that rankings don't mean anything now, but it is a nice thing for your second year for the guys in the program to have that recognition going into the season. It's
a two-headed monster. I mean, it's great for public perception of our program, especially how things were viewed, prior to us as a coaching staff getting here. But again, I go back to, we haven't earned anything. I hope our players are well aware of that. If they're not, they'll learn it the hard way, and I'm hopeful that we don't have to learn it the hard way moving forward.
What did you get out of the scrimmage?
We got our ass kicked.
Have they responded in practice? I mean, did they get the message?
I just think that it's reality. You try to give your team reality every day in practice, but, as preseason sort of goes forward and unfolds, do practices become monotonous? I mean, we're on practice 25, and we've only one time teed it up against someone different than our teammates. But, I think that the really good teams, they thrive in the mundane. They want to get better in every drill, whether it's a live drill with competition or it's a teaching drill. It doesn't matter to the good ones. And I think our team is still learning that, to be completely transparent.
Coach, there's some rule changes this year, and I'm just wondering your process, how with the new three-point line or the reset to 20 seconds after an offensive rebound. And you all as coaches, do you workshop that through how you want to deal with those situations? And players kind of get a habit, and these are going to be new habits. How much do you work on that in practice?
Well, we don't have to work on the line moving back much in practice. I mean, it's there. I think you have to know, and we have to know as a coaching staff, who we want shooting transition threes, who we're trying to free. I don't think the line is going to have a drastic effect on college basketball. I think the evidence from the experimental rules would show that. I do worry about our guys stepping out of bounds on the sideline. Their feet are behind the three-point line. When they catch the ball, they go to drive, and their back foot steps on the sideline because there's way less room than there used to be. And that's been a teaching point really all summer and all preseason. And I think you're going to be shocked at how many teams and players turn the ball over because of those situations. NBA players have even less room than the college guys now, and they seem to figure it out. But I think there's going to be an adjustment period with that. I don't think the 20-second reset on an offensive rebound is going to see a whole lot of difference to the game. But that's just my personal feel. We play with a shorter shot clock in practice. Not everything that we do is in the full court. And so if we play in the half court, we're not going to have the shot clock at 30 seconds because that actually gives our guys more time than they'd have in normal instances. So, we're generally playing with a shortened shot clock. We generally play 4-on-4 to do a lot of the teaching that we do. So our practices look a little different at times than what you'd see in the game.
Chris, but the fact that the first game is a conference game, it counts, it matters. Is there maybe a little bit more immediacy in getting this team ready for the start of the season?
Yeah, I think we feel that as a coaching staff. I hope our players feel that. We're always going to try to get ready for our first opponent, just like we're trying to get ready for Bellarmine on Tuesday. But as you said, conference game, it's on the road. It's something new for every team in the league. We got to be as sharp as we possibly can be. We got to try to address, every situation that may unfold. It's not reality. You're not going to be able to cover everything prior to game one. If you could, then you wouldn't need all the other practices all throughout the season. So, it'd probably look ugly on both ends of the floor for both teams. But we got to be as sharp as we possibly can be by November 5th.
Coach, understanding that it's out of your hands, but do you like having conference games before January 1st, or if it was up to you, would you not do that?
No, I don't like it. I don't feel so strongly that I'm going to pound my fist on the table, but, as a coach, you like I said, you want to sort of get better as the season goes on. And, you feel a tremendous amount of pressure to get ready and get prepared for anything you may see, knowing that it's a conference game.
What do you hope to take from Bellarmine on Tuesday?
I want to see big improvement from our team from Saturday's or Sunday's scrimmage to the next time we take the floor. We know Bellarmine's going to be very disciplined. They're going to move the ball as fast as they possibly can on offense. On defense, they're going to really try to shrink the floor. But I'm more worried about, and I want to see out of our guys, a mindset that I didn't quite honestly see in the first half of the Ohio State scrimmage. Having said that, we responded really well in the second half, but I think having a veteran team, the continuity of the same coaching staff, we should be a lot more ready than we were on Sunday. I'm anxious to see that.
Coach, from that scrimmage, were there any guys that might have been a little bit of a pleasant surprise, either from practice or that scrimmage?
I thought Darius Perry, outside of a few turnovers, and a few of them were shot clock violations where he just sort of ate the ball. I thought he was tremendous defensively. I thought he shot it well. I didn't think our offense for anybody on our team produced the type of shots that we want, but I thought he made some good plays with the basketball. He had 6 steals. He was tremendous defensively. So I thought Darius, maybe more than anybody, sort of stuck out at the scrimmage.
Chris, where have you seen his greatest growth?
Just his attitude, the consistency in that. And I talked a lot about him being a mercurial kid a year ago. And that's just inherently who he is. If you ever heard of the parable or the story of the scorpion and the frog, if you haven't, I'll tell it to you sometime off record. But Darius has responded, and it's exciting for our coaching staff. He's been virtually the same guy every day, which has been a very, very positive one. A guy that's, been very competitive. He's played well. He's had a chip on his shoulder. He's talked defensively. He's doing everything that we wanted him to do a year ago. And sometimes it takes a little longer for certain guys to mature and sort of get used to teammates, the coaching staff, the college game. But he's done much better in the preseason.
What's the latest on Mack and David and timetable for kind of getting them back?
So David is practicing non-contact. He started that on Monday. If we're doing a shooting drill, if we're doing a running through our offense against no defense, a 5-on-0 drill as I'd call it, anything that we're doing non-contact, David's allowed to be out there with no restrictions. That helps him get his wind, his understanding of what we're doing on both ends of the floor. Contact's probably going to happen in 3 weeks from today. And so, he's really on the front end of the timetable that you all were given when we first put out the press release. So, great news for David. And then Mack is a little different. When you break your foot, all we're doing is looking at x-rays and MRIs and images to see that the bone is healing, which it is. I think Fred's going to get him out of the boot next week and start to do a few things. But we're still looking at the 6 to 8 week, time frame that we did when he first had surgery. And, the days turn into weeks for me, and I don't know which week we're in, to be honest with you.
How about Quinn?
Quinn is going to start conditioning today. He hasn't done anything in a week. He'll likely do some shooting tomorrow on his own. It's an off day for our team. We've gone 4 or 5 days in a row. And then with the hopes that we can try to get him in a uniform, how effective he'll be or how much he'll play against Bellarmine, I have no idea. But I'd like to, from that point forward, sort of look at him as back on the team or back with the team. in full capacity.
I know you tried to downplay the expectations and keep it up.
I've tried.
But when you think back a year and a half to your hiring and everything that you faced coming in, has it kind of come together a lot faster than you thought, just in terms of putting your stamp on the program and with recruiting?
I don't know. I had high expectations when I took over. I don't know what other people thought. I think that I was left with some tremendously talented players. I will not for one bit sit up here and say, hey, what a good job our staff has done, when I'm really relying on Dwayne Sutton, who was recruited by Rick Pitino, Ryan McMahon, who was recruited by Coach Stephen Enoch, Malik Williams, Darius, all the way down. Those guys are our stalwarts. They're our better players right now. They're our most experienced players. And so I've coached them really hard, and our coaching staff has coached them really hard. The type of character they have has allowed them to be coached by maybe somebody they didn't sign up for. And so I do think we have a chance to be pretty daggone good. But, to answer your question, we were left with some really good players. Very thankful for a good freshman recruiting class that hopefully we'll learn from the older guys, and we'll provide a little bit more stability for the program as we move forward.
Was it more satisfying that you were able to keep those guys on board, on the same page with you, and sell them? Is that your satisfaction?
It beats the alternative. I can tell you that. I don't really worry about being satisfied. I think in athletics at this level, if you're satisfied, you're setting yourself up for failure. It's almost the lesson that I give our players. Are we satisfied with the preseason rankings? And if I were to sort of show that satisfaction to you all about where our program is, I think I'd be a little bit of a hypocrite with my players.
A lot's been said about what Stephen Enoch has done during the offseason to improve himself. You've talked about it, but what does his own personal, push, drive to improve, not only good for him and the team, but also from a leadership standpoint for some of these younger guys?
Steve saw a lot this summer, whether it was the NBA workouts, or whether it was getting invited to Nike Skills Academy for the better college players, whether it was going to the NCAA headquarters for a leadership convention for the better players around the country, and only select 20 or so get invited. I think those type of experiences have really motivated Steve and have sort of allowed him to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and have really pushed him. I think he's recognized going up against big-time players or listening to big-time speakers, people that have been in his shoes in years past, that's really motivated Steve. And so while I think Coach Kettler's been on him, Steve has been very self-motivated. He wants to go out and have a better senior year. I think he's more confident than he's ever been. Certainly he's in better shape than he's ever been. So I'm anxious for Steve. I'm excited for Steve. You want all your players to respond the way he has going into his senior year.
Does that help kind of set the standard for some of the 6 new guys?
I sure hope so. I think every player on our team, in their own way, is doing things to show that they have a belief that they want to be great. They want our team to be great. And the freshmen are just sort of figuring it out. And Steve's a great example of that.
Do you expect any of these freshmen to contribute immediately?
Sure. Again, the type of impact that maybe people on the outside might think of, but I've tend to find that freshmen, they just continue to get better. They don't know much about the college game and how fast and physical, how accountable, how details matter. They don't know any of that stuff because they've never really been in that space. And so I think the ones that stay with it, continue to get better every day and learn from their mistakes, will allow themselves to get on the floor. And we got to let them play through some mistakes too. But yeah, some of them are going to impact our program. I think they'll all impact at some point or another. Certainly Sam's probably put himself ahead of a few of the other guys in terms of opportunity to play. But we got to try to find opportunities for all of them at some point.
What are the keys to finishing games? What do you emphasize in the offseason as you go back and look at some of those games?
Finishing games has nothing to do with what happens in the game. Finishing has everything to do with our mentality at practice, and so I think our team is still far from perfect, but to finish a drill, to finish a segment, whatever we're doing at the time matters. And I think our team has just had to learn that the hard way.
Has your preseason practices kind of been the same or a little different? Last year it was all new for everybody. This year you've got so many new faces, but you've got some older guys. Has it been kind of the same?
The mistakes that are being made today are a little different. They weren't repeated as often. I didn't have any freshmen on the team last year. So, when you told an upperclassman or you told a guy that was a sophomore, no, this is the angle of the screen, for the most part, he could put it into practice and transfer his training. I find myself saying, no, this is the angle of the screen again and again and again and again and again and again.
With coming off a successful first-year season, which you said exceeded expectations, to now being ranked preseason top 5, what's your expectations of your team this year?
If you're expecting me to give you a win-loss, I'm not going to do that. If our team competes and stays together and improves, we can do anything that we want to do. We can do anything, absolutely anything that we want to do. We can compete with any team in the country, and that's going to be the challenge for our team is to be everyday guys.
You ever met Francisco Garcia?
I have not.
Or you can meet him tonight?
My staff is going. Unfortunately, my daughter. I shouldn't say unfortunately. That sounds bad.
That's my headline right there.
Yeah. She's got her first dance, so Dad's going to drive the minivan. Or whatever they got me driving.
You have a walk-on played at Richmond and Keith. What's the backstory and how did you get him and what's it been like to work with him?
Well, he graduated from Richmond, great friends with Quan, and I think Keith wanted to go somewhere and play, and then after he called around, maybe thought about it a little bit more, I think his desire to play wasn't maybe as strong as he thought, and then he thought, well, where could I go and maybe start to branch out and learn new coaches. I think he ultimately wants to get into coaching. I think Quan had talked to him about, his experience here. And so he reached out, and I thought it was sort of odd to have a grad transfer walk-on. But he's been great. He's been great. He goes hard. He has a great voice, cares about our team, and I'm really glad he's a part of it.
You hit on my second question, which do you see characteristics in him of future coaching? And can you tell with guys when they're at that point?
Yeah, I think that, he certainly made that clear that he wants to get into coaching. Some people say that and they find out the hours or the lower rungs on the ladder, so to speak. But we're really far from that for him. But, you can see in terms of his work ethic, his attention to detail, how much he cares about his teammates, the energy he brings every day in practice. Those are the makings, I think, of a really good coach. But again, we're step one here in that process.
Of the freshmen, who do you see as being able to make the most impact on the defensive end?
I think Josh Nickelberry in time could be a guy that has some makings of a stopper. He's learned the hard way at times guarding Ryan McMahon, who's terrific shooter and very, very crafty. Fifth-year senior, he's got a lot of college experience in that head of his. So, Josh's ears are smoking sometimes after a practice. Smoke's coming out of his ears, and he's learning for the very first time. But he's got great size. He's extremely strong. He's athletic. And like all of our freshmen, he'll continue to get experience.
Chris, you mentioned Samuel a little bit. What have you seen from him in practice?
He's very poised. He's very sure of himself on the offensive end when he knows what the coaching staff wants or what the play is designed for. He's just sort of a naturally gifted guy that can score. He really understands how to use his size. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He doesn't, blow you away with his athleticism, but he does not get sped up. He gets to his spots. He's got a soft touch. And again, like every freshman, he's just rapidly improving.
How's Jordan better? I mean, he's a first-team All-American. He's preseason ACC Player of the Year. How's he better in your eyes?
Well, he's more experienced. You know, a year ago, I mean, he's coming off a season which he averaged, 10 minutes, 12 minutes a game. And, you know, I think he really recognizes areas that he does have to get better, that our team's relying on him. You know, his decision-making, you know, his attention to detail. You know, on offense, you know, he doesn't have to be a guy that improves his scoring by 10 points a game and now averages 25. Like, we have enough talent around him that he just has to be more efficient. So whether that's scoring the ball, whether that's his decision-making, we certainly need to rely on him to be an even better defender, you know, as a junior. But, you know, I think Jordan's better in all those areas.
When you got here with Dwayne, you saw the consistency. Did you realize how good he was before you became his coach? And then what has he improved?
No, I can't say that I you know, recognized how good he was. It just, because he's not a guy that sticks out because of his skill level in practice. But who Dwayne is every day in practice is the same guy you're going to get on game night. Like, there's nothing that changes. You know, he dives on the floor in practice. He dives on the floor in games. He sets screens in practice. He doesn't whiff in games. As I've said a million times, he cares about one thing, and you all know what that is, and that's winning. And his teammates know it, and his coaches know it. He knows it. If he has an ego, boy, I don't see it. Sometimes I wish he'd have more confidence and more of a voice. But there's not a coach in the country that wouldn't want a guy like Dwayne Sutton on their team.
Coach, in the offseason, you talked a lot about maybe the possibility of experimenting more 3-out, 2-in, 4-out, 1-in with these guys. Do you feel like you're more on the path of being able to play the style that you hope to this year?
We can definitely do that. And you mentioned 3-out with 2-in and having more 2 traditional big guys. You know, we haven't been able to rep it because Malik's been out virtually the entire preseason. And Steve and Aiden aren't a combination that I'm going to play. And so, because they're a little too similar in their feel and who they are as defensive players. But Malik allows us to be a lot more versatile. As you all saw a year ago, he can go out on the floor, he can move his feet, he can play a perimeter player, but we haven't had a chance to do a whole lot. Now, our offense allows a lot more for flexibility to do that. It's just we haven't been able to with him being out.
You mentioned Aiden and Steven being more similar to each other. What are some of those differences besides just experience level?
Well, I think Steve's a lot more skilled than Aiden is at this stage. He's in his 5th year. Aiden's in his first few weeks. You know, Steve's a much better face-up player at this point. You know, his ability to shoot threes, hit a free throw percentage that's high, doesn't happen for a lot of big guys. So I think that's where you'd see a big discrepancy between Aiden and Steve. And before, when I was talking, it was more on the defensive end. You know, those guys aren't as comfortable as Malik is out and about near the three-point line.
How's Jalen Weathers?
He's ever improving. And I thought he really struggled this summer. And I don't think that he was necessarily prepared for what he saw, the physicality, the day-to-day grind of being in a weight room and being asked to, you know, eat as many calories as we were asking him. And so he didn't make the gains as quickly as the other guys did. It was, you know, like getting hit in the face with a frying pan for Jalen. But he has come a long way. He's come a long way. Now, does that translate into minutes? Not yet. Not yet. But he may have as big of an upside as any of the freshmen that we have because he is super athletic. I think you saw that in the meaningless dunk contest at Louisville Live. But he is very athletic. He's instinctive in some ways. He can affect shots at the rim. So he just has to figure out who he is as an offensive player, continue to get stronger, and get more experience.
How is Aiden making the adjustment? I would imagine when he goes up against a guy like Steven in practice, that's not something that he's done a whole lot of in his life.
The adjustment's a hard one. I think if Aiden were being, completely transparent, it's a lot harder than he thought. The league in which he played in high school did not prepare him very well for the league that he's in now. And so it's been a learning lesson. But as I've told him, you're going up against one of the top 15 bigs in the entire country, maybe. And I don't know if he appreciates that or understands that. Aiden's adjustment that if he makes, he'll be able to contribute sooner rather than later, is one that he has to learn how to play hard every possession, harder. I know he thinks he's playing hard. He's almost halfway there. Blocking shots, rebounding, running the floor, ball screen defense. And again, some things, in order for you to give the type of effort that we're asking, you have to process them first a little bit. And so, the two are sort of married together, but he's getting there.
With what you saw from David before he was injured and then take the injury, and what can you expect? And obviously it'll take a little time for him when he comes back, but when he does get back, kind of your expectations for him?
Yeah, I have high expectations for David. I was really excited with, who he was in the summer. I like to pat myself on the back. Ever since I saw him as a freshman in high school, I just felt like he had an instinctual feel for the game that you can't teach or you try to teach. He sees plays develop. He's doesn't look like everybody else at his position. But I expect a lot out of David. His conditioning is going to be behind. I'm sure he's going to be rusty, learning all the plays, and we're trying to do that now, 5-on-0. Learning is not an issue for David, but again, learning in an environment where it's 4 guys on your team and just throwing the ball around versus now you have a guy pressuring you and you have to get that ball on the spot is a lot different. So he's going to have to make that adjustment, but we'll be a better team once David gets back, and I anticipate him having a big impact on our team this year.
What does Fresh give you?
A lot of stability. I think much like Kristen Cunningham did a year ago when you guys didn't know who he was when I sat in the same press conference. They're two different players, but I think Fresh gives you that, 5 years of college basketball, understands he's surrounded by some talented scorers. He's going to be very protective of the basketball. On defense, he's going to know his assignment. He's going to keep the ball in front of him. And so I think, that's what he can provide. A guy that I think is a better shooter than Kristen from the outside. But yeah, that's who I think Fresh is as a player.
With these freshmen, how quickly do you learn? Because every kid's different how you can coach them. Whether you can yell at them and they'll respond, or how quickly do you learn that? Do you learn that in the summer? Do you learn that once games start?
I think every kid's different. I just think you have to build a relationship with those guys. It started in recruiting, but as you know, recruiting, and we try to be truth tellers as much as we can in the recruiting process. We're not going to tell a kid, hey, you're going to start from day one. We're not going to tell a kid, hey, this is how many minutes you're going to play as a freshman. Maybe other programs do that, but we're not going to. But when a kid gets here, reality gets served pretty quickly, especially if you have an older team, veteran players. But I think you build the relationship, with your kids. You sit there and you watch film with them. You spend time with them after practice. You get on them during practice. You pull them aside after. And that just takes time. Any relationship takes time. But, when you have that time, then you build trust. They trust their coaching staff. They trust their teammates and vice versa. So each kid's different.
Back to Fresh, what has his role been kind of within the locker room as someone who's not new to college basketball but is still new to Louisville and how you guys do things?
Yeah, he was a lot quieter than I thought he would be early on. But I think he's come out of his shell. I think, again, he's learning for the very first time, our terminology. It's hard to tell as a point guard, where guys need to go and what they need to do when you're quickly learning yourself. But he has asserted himself a lot more in the fall since we've gotten back than he did in the summer. The summer was great for him to get, to learn, to try to learn as much as he could in our system. He's still learning. We didn't introduce our entire system in the summer. And then he's learning his teammates, and he got in great shape. He's coming off of a knee surgery. His body got in a lot better shape in the 12 weeks he was here. So I'd like to think that this preseason, he's a much different leader than he was when he first got here.
Coach, we heard some of it during the scrimmage, but it seems like this team communicates really well when they're on the floor. Who are your vocal leaders?
Man, I tell you what, I don't know where you got that piece of information. I hope that's the case. The best players in the world communicate. You watch those specials on TNT at NBA games, and guys are mic'd up, and it's amazing how well NBA players communicate to their teammates. And it's because they're smart, they're experienced, they see the game. And it's amazing how incoming kids don't open their mouth, they don't talk. And a big part of that is, what are they processing? You can't talk about where you need to be defensively or what needs to happen if you're not recognizing it. And so that's where the experience factor comes in. That makes me feel good that you say that. I don't know if we're even halfway there when it comes to how vocal our team needs to be. It's something that we talk about every day in practice.
Okay, one more question.
Starting five.
What's that?
Starting five.
Well, if we had to start a game today, I would start Darius at the 1. I would start Ryan McMahon at the 2. I would start Dwayne Sutton at the 3. I would start Jordan Wara at the 4. And I would start Keith Otto at the 5.
Thank you.
Or Enoch, one of the two. Thanks.